Hi everyone, it's Erin Scott here. Welcome to your October 2019 Alchemy Scope. Let's take a look at your growth processes, your natural growth processes for this Libra new moon cycle, which is correlating with our month of October, through three different modalities: an art channeling, a divinatory message, and an analysis of your astrological cycle. So Gemini, let's take a look at your art channeling that came through for you. All right. So we're looking at a speeded up version of the process. You can see I'm starting with pen. I wrote out your name, and there was a heart that formed above one of the eyes of Gemini, which is very unlike me. So something about that wanted to come through. And then we have some formation coming out here to the left side of the paper with circles or highlights, something that we'll determine later. We're going to look at this unfolding and then we're going to analyze what's happening here. And then you can see that there's a form beginning on this kind of main part or the right side of the paper here. And it's becoming a bed pretty rapidly, okay? So you see like a, queen size bed, headboard, pillows, seemingly, okay? And then Gemini, something wanted to come essentially embedded in this bed. And what's being formed here is like a cradle, like an old-fashioned cradle, a wood carved cradle, okay? And it's essentially not in front of the bed, but rather kind of embedded in the bed. So we're going to talk about this symbolism in a minute. And you can see that there's a baby, a form of a baby that's emerging inside this cradle, okay, which is layered inside this adult bed. And something wanted to come. It wasn't quite clear at first, but something wanted to come. The pillows were becoming non-pillows, essentially. And you can see that of these two, what look like pillows on the bed, the left pillow, Gemini, is becoming essentially like either an iMac screen or a television screen. It's some sort of a technological screen, okay? And we'll see if we can get some more insight into actually what that is. I have an idea about it, but we're doing this analysis live, essentially, as I'm recording this audio. And you can see now the other pillow is becoming a window, okay? Glass panes, 4-paned window with a wood, kind of the same wood that's creating the cradle with the baby in it is the wood of the window, okay? And you can see behind, so essentially not a lot is colored in this drawing so far, but blue wanted to become this headboard, all right? So we have the blue like backboard, headboard, and then kind of the posts. So it's essentially a bed frame with the feet, and then you have the headboard in the back. Let's see what else is coming here. Now there's kind of this orange shape, form, energy flow. There's some sort of orange demarcation arced next to this black formation on the left side and up to the eye with the heart in it that's circled, okay? And now on top of these horizontal lines, these angled lines on the side, is a flute. A flute. So Gemini, this is very segmented, It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I love falling into these processes because it's powerful. again, and the interpretation of these art channelings don't come until now when I'm doing these audio recordings. So the last thing, I think this is the last final thing to come, is that there wanted to be a demarcation of shadow underneath the bed. Okay, so underneath this bed, to kind of ground it on the floor and give it weight to it being sitting on a platform or on a floor, and to have the shadow under the bed emerging, that wanted to be drawn. So let's take a look then at this stilled image and really analyze this. So Gemini, the first thing out of the gate is the fact that we have Gemini with the eye circled. Now, one thing that I need to do right now, just give me 1 minute here. Let's look up I in the Pythagorean numerology. It's number 9. I is number 9. So Gemini, Gemini. There's 2 I's, but it's the third one in that's being circled. Now we're analyzing all of these elements because it all means something. It's all interpreting something. Third I in, the third letter in, okay? It's not the final I that was circled. It's the first one. I equates to the number 9. 9 talks about completions of cycles, spiritual lessons, orientations or actions that are more humanitarian in nature. So we're looking at Gemini, the first eye circled. What does that mean? It's almost like the first stage of lessons, Gemini. The first stage of lessons. There's a highlight in October because, again, this artistic channeling is tapping into the generalized, natural narrative of themes that are unfolding for you this month in this Libra new moon cycle of October 2019. There's something happening, Gemini, where there is almost like a first stage of, let's say, spiritual lessons. Maybe there's some sort of a quote-unquote graduation of sorts this month. Maybe something gets assimilated and learned. There's a heart above the eye. It has to do with love. It has to do with love in general, meaning the love in your life, not love relationships like a partner, but love in general. It could be agape love. Or for some of you, this could have to do with a particularly important love relationship in your life. This month, 9 heart, spiritual lesson with regards to a love relationship, perhaps some sort of a completion or an assimilation of the lesson, Gemini. And ultimately what ended up coming up and up to the bottom of that eye with the heart was that big, thick orange line, curved. So it's an organic flow of information. Orange can represent education and communication or creative expression of some sort that is communicated, and maybe even that you're curious about and that you investigate. But that orange line coming up to that eye with the heart, I do get from that there is some important new learnings maybe coming to you from creative modes, creative people, creative methodologies, etc., that's going to land something for you. It's going to help you understand something and come to some completion point, at least an initial one, Gemini. Why do I say an initial learning process? Because only the first eye was circled, not the last. There's still another spiritual lesson, perhaps with regards to either this particular love relationship that's important to you, whether it's a parent, a child, a cohort, a friend, or a lover, spouse, partner association, okay? Or it has to do with love patterns in general, meaning relationships, okay? So for some of you, it's one person. For some of you, it's relationships. There's some new learnings via, I think, maybe creative methodologies that's going to enlighten you and help you assimilate learnings, spiritual learnings with regards to this, okay? Now, the second thing that came was this almost like a curved stairway, although it's very organic and scribbled. It's not really steps or stairs like we've had in other readings, actually. We had some stairs in one of the other signs readings this month. So for you, it's almost like a curved staircase in a way. There are on the left side of, let's say, these layers, these circles. One circle, another one, and another one. The bottom one is filled in. It's black and it's filled in. I don't know what that means. Steps going down. It could mean that over the course of October, and it is aligned astrologically, that you might be going into a deep dive. You're going to do some investigation. You're going to go down inside yourself, especially because the last circle down at the bottom is filled in. So maybe you are going into, in fact, dreams and dream time. We're going to talk more about this bed, but indeed, this stairway with the black circle at the bottom, almost like a black hole or some sort of a portal, indeed is right next to this bed. Something's leading you to a childhood experience. Something's leading you to an original story, a foundational story, part of your blueprint. And of course, for those who are not aware of their natal blueprint, be in touch, read my testimonials, connect in for a natal reading, because this is the time to really get clear about what the patterns are and what the mastery arcs are. But yeah, Gemini, I do get that in October you are going down deep. You are going into your unconscious. You might be accessing some information in your dream time. Very much so, I think. Now, ultimately, what ended up manifesting kind of at the very end here was this flute. And it's standing almost upright. It's a little bit at an angle. First of all, it's a flute. A flute you blow into, right? So it's taking your breath to create the music. This can maybe be speaking to communication that needs to happen, that you're going to undergo in the month of October. Some sort of communication that you express comes out as music. Something gets harmonized in your thoughts, thinking with regards to perhaps a love relationship. It gets catalyzed by some learning, perhaps through creative means. You assimilate some information, and then there's some communication, I think, at the end of the month or toward the end of October, because we're talking about the flute arising at the end of this drawing. Something gets harmonized where you're able to speak or communicate with your breath that sounds like music, or in other words, it's synchronized, it's harmonized. There's something coalescing, correlated, and coming together, okay? Now, it's standing upright. I feel that that's confidence, confident blowing out music. For some of you, by the way, this is music. For some of you, especially with the bed represented, which is Neptunian, it's Piscean, this is dream time, this is the source field, Neptune, of course, and we're talking like the blue headboard here, which we're going to talk more about, but this could be very Neptunian, and Neptune rules music. So here we have this flute standing upright. For some of you, confident musical expression is going to emerge this month. But for those of you where musical instruments or music in the way of singing, etc., is not part of your game in this life, this is talking about expression that is harmonious, okay? But it is confident because this tool, this instrument is upright, okay? Now, I didn't count. There are how many of these little tabs on the flute? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 of them. 6 has to do with family, security, stability. It has to do with financial stability and logistical stability and familial stability. And it also has to do with generalized balance, spirit and matter, external life, internal life. 6 is about balance, okay? But it does have to do also with the logistics of harmony in this life via the security of your finances and the security of your family situations, etc. So that's actually activated for you as well here, I think, with that 6. It might be that the communication, the harmonious communication, the confident, harmonious communication, Gemini, that's arising out of you toward the end of October will be either two family members or having to do with your stability factors in this life, logistical, okay? Now, let's get to the bed. First of all, what does the bed represent? A bed is symbolic of rest, taking a break, sleep, and accessing the etheric, right? Because when we sleep, we naturally access our spiritual self. We access the etheric through, the consciousness realm, accessing the consciousness realm. So sleep, the bed represents rest. It represents taking a break. It represents accessing spirit. It talks about accessing the imaginal. Okay? And I do believe, because we're talking about this baby bassinet, that kind of emerged embedded inside and in the middle of this adult bed, that you are accessing. I think that there's a couple things, Gemini. I think there's one of two things going on for you. Either, and it could be both, but what I'm getting, Gemini, is that either you are needing rest and, in fact, needing to sleep quite a lot in October because you need protection, like a baby would, wrapped up in that bassinet. This baby is very, first of all, peaceful. It's hard to see, but the expression on the face is rested and at peace here. This is a baby who is safe. So there's a safety kind of narrative that I'm getting here. The desire to feel safe, okay? So this baby is rested, safe, protected, okay? And what I get is that you might need to become that baby this month. Maybe you need to self-contain, to maybe not engage with too many social engagements or interactions. That's one thing that might be activated for some of you. The original thing that I got from this, and what I'm getting again here though, for maybe more of you or for most of you, is that in your dream time over the course of this month, and even in your meditation processes and rituals this month, you are going to be accessing a core foundational aspect of you, okay? A core story that has to do with you as a baby, you as a child, you as a toddler, that is going to help you connect some dots, understand some root narratives, and get to a place of peace. This baby is at peace. And so there's something almost at the base of your story, at the base of your blueprint, maybe a pattern that's been happening again and again and again. Something comes to a rest, a restful period. Again, that I equals 9, and 9 talks about some sort of a completion and a spiritual lesson. So there's something here where you are getting clarity and coming to a place of new restfulness and peace with regards to an issue. I think having to do with love. I think it has to also do with family, and I think it has to do with communication. Okay. Now, with that all being said, the pillows transmutated. The left pillow became this computer/television screen. This is technology. Now, the whole screen is blacked out. It's not on. This particular screen is off. But what I get from that screen is that it's an access point for you over the course of this month. So in the month of October, I think technological engagement, interactions, networks, groups, communications, emails, Facebook posts in the news feed, that technology is going to be a major player for a lot of you this month. It's going to be an access point for you. Now, inherently, Gemini, there's a growth edge with this. Inherently, there's a discernment aspect here that you need to own and evolve and grow this month, which is don't fall too deep into that. Don't fall too deep into technology. Don't fall too deep into losing time online. And actually, the reason why we really know that that's the truth here is because we have the right pillow that's become the window. The window's looking outside. It's a day sky outside. It's not blacked out. It's not nighttime. It's not even ambrosia or sunrise. It's daytime. Okay, so we're looking out a window at a bright day outside. For me, this is about, now keep in mind, for a lot of you, this is talking about your evolutionary process this month, having to do with you being home, protected, indoors, wanting to actually sleep quite a bit, stay in bed quite a bit. Maybe some of you are even sick and resting up. And from that bed, you're looking out a window at nature outside, and you're looking at your television screen or your computer screen from the bed. But I want you to understand that what I also get, for those of you that are not going to be bedridden or ill or sick or recuperating or even resting that much this month, that this is saying that you're going to be splitting your time, maybe even evenly, because there's these two pillows showing here with this computer screen in the window, where you're going to be dividing your time between spending a lot of time online and a lot of time looking out a window. Now, for me, the growth edge is you need to go outside, not just looking out the window, but you need to actually go outside in fresh air. You need to go connect your feet to the earth. You need to connect with Gaia. You need to connect with living systems this month. The growth edge with the computer screen is don't fall too deep. So when I was actually drawing it, there was a sense about it that just felt kind of hard. It felt kind of hard. And it also felt there was some delusion there that would be a red flag. So I'll just state that, especially with the blue headboard that emerged after the pillows, right? So with the blue headboard, this is kind of indicating communication. So for you, you're getting communication through a couple different ways. One, hopefully through nature. Two, one through a lot of technological engagement. And keep in mind, we are in the midst of major activity with news cycles now. Politically, everything's a hot topic, and every hour on the hour there's new information coming out. Globally, there's a lot in the news cycle, so it can be overwhelming. My guidance to you is balance it out and pull back if need be, because there is an indication that rest is needed. There is an indication that you are going through a kind of spiritual lesson process over the course of this time. And there is this indication that ultimately the evolutionary growth is to get to that communication of harmony, the flute, the upstanding flute. So do the rest that's needed. Now, the last thing that came through here was kind of the shadow that's showing up underneath the bed, right? The shadows, for me, there's a couple things. One is the weight of the bed on the floor, meaning it's not floating, it's grounded. So there's something about your physical bed that you need to pay attention to. There's something about your physical bed that will mean a lot to you in October. And like I said, a lot of you are just going to want to sleep a lot, or you're going to need rest and recuperation accordingly. Maybe you have been ill and sick, right? Or maybe you will get sick over the course of the month and just need bed rest. And to attend to your younger self. Obviously, with this baby showing up, there's a lot there with the baby. This is for you specifically, for each of you listening, you each have a very specific and distinct blueprint with a very specific and distinct narrative. And the patterns that you hold inside your blueprint will always be activated outside of you with the externalized experiences that you have. As a child, being catalyzed by mother, by father, by early childhood dynamics. There's something about your early childhood dynamics that you are coming to a restful place around. But it is going to take that grounded, that bed on the floor, Grounded rest. Okay? And there's also one last thing. The black underneath the bed shows the shadow under the bed. The coverlet or the duvet cover over this bed is white. So this is the light aspect, what you see. What's under the bed is the shadow, the darkness. So there are things underneath the surface of things that are arising this month, that are coming out this month, that are coming to your awareness through your dream portal this month. That's what I get, Gemini. It's going to be a very interesting month. This is, astrologically speaking, this is a very dynamic month. And indeed, the signs are getting really interesting storylines coming through. Now, let's take a look at the guidance that came through for you, all right? Now, you can see we have Halloween decorations, beautiful sunny day. I went outside and picked the cards for all the signs on a fantastic fall day. And dear Gemini, you received the zone of boundaries as your growth edge for this month. This is ideally what you are to focus on, grow, mature, and evolve in order to get to a place of least effort with the navigation of this month. The zone of boundaries says this: you are only a victim if you allow yourself to be a victim. People may try to take your power from you, but you always have a choice in whether or not to let them. First, it is important to set your boundaries. Evaluate your personal, family, and professional life. In your personal life, do you eat the extra donut? Take charge of your decisions. Does your family expect you to run their errands? Set a reasonable limit and tell them no if you must. Does your boss appreciate your work? Remember that you are an asset, not a liability. Sometimes a little reminder is all that is necessary. Terrific. Zone of boundaries. And indeed, going back to the artwork, you in the bed, the baby in the bed, protected, calm, at rest. There might indeed be a time, as some planets are moving into Scorpio this month, that rest is indicated, boundaries are indicated. Certainly this is the growth edge for you. Now you can see on the card here of the zone of boundaries palmistry card that the bottom section of the index finger is circled. You can apply acupressure to that point over the course of this month to help activate and remind you about the boundaries that are optimal for you to set. Healthy boundaries. Okay? Beautiful that. Now, Gemini, let's take a quick look at some of the main narratives for the October cycle of the Gemini archetype. Okay? You can see with this chart, we're looking at a couple of things. One, it's the chart for the Libra new moon that we had at the end of September. Why? Because that new moon is encoding the energetics of the growth cycle for October. So that's what we're looking at here. And in addition to that, we're looking at a whole sign chart starting with Aries. So it's essentially the natural zodiac wheel. But I have my notes here, so I'm going to let you know what is happening for the Gemini archetype narrative for your process in October. Now, the main thing that we have going on, of course, with this new moon cycle is the sun moon conjunct in Libra at 5 degrees 20 minutes. There's a couple of things just with that we need to talk about. One, whenever the sun and moon come together every month, this is this meeting of the outer self and the inner self. The externalized self, the sun, and the moon, the internalized self. So this conjunction of sun-moon at 5 degrees, 5, which represents change, chaos, creativity, freedom, individuation, okay? All of these things, movement and action. 5 with this alignment of sun-moon is inherently indicating shifting and changing dynamics as you are navigating a new self. In addition, of course, the sun moon is in Libra. Libra is the sign ruled by Venus, and this is about relationships. It's about fairness and dynamic equilibrium, harmony between two entities. But certainly what we're talking about with Libra is the area of life that has to do with relationships. So this changing identity in the Libra archetype shows that indeed there are changes happening with regards to you as you grow and mature, but you are becoming different with your relationships, with your dynamics, the relationship dynamics with which you operate, for the love relationships in your life, the friend relationships in your life, all of them, okay? Now, specifically Gemini, for you, this stellium of planets, meaning the Sun and Moon conjunct in Libra, and at the end, at this point of this Libra new moon, we also had Mercury and Venus in Libra. So all of these planets in Libra is a main focus for you in your 5th house, okay? Now, this 5th house activation is squaring that stellium of planet up in Capricorn. And for you, that Pluto-Saturn South Node, all in the 8th house for you. So the deep psyche, which has been and is continuing to go through tremendous deep transmutation processes, you are navigating, in fact, it's going to start getting easier, by the way, but the South Node Saturn conjunction in that 8th house can create a lot of restriction and even a lack of interest in your own psychological depths, okay? And it could certainly bring up past patterns, rigid patterns of power dynamics and power issues that you have been contending with in 2019. It will start to ease, I will let you know. I mean, now that Saturn's going direct and it's moving off of that South Node, very good news for all of us. There's a certain intensity with that exact conjunction that's really intense. And indeed, at the point of this Libra new moon that's imbuing the energetics of October, that was exact. So for you, that 8th house Saturn South Node, Gemini, super intense, because you are having to contend with rigid old patterns that have to do with power dynamics. How you hold your power, how you give it away, how you enforce it, how others enforce it on top of you, etc. Now, with that being said, that Pluto-Saturn South Node in Capricorn is squaring all of those planets, essentially, all of those planets in Libra. Pluto's outside of the square range for the new moon. So the Sun Moon at 5 degrees actually was only squaring Saturn South Node for you, which is big. It's significant, right? But actually, the Mercury Venus, which also was there in Libra in your 5th house, was squaring Pluto, and in fact was squaring all of those, South Node, Saturn, and Pluto. So what does that mean? It means that there can be some contention and challenge as you step into your individuated self, 5th house. How do you step up and out as a distinct, individuated individual? Creatively expressed and confident, Gemini. Confident. So, with the square up there to that rigid point of Saturn South Node in Capricorn in the 8th house, wow. I mean, there might be some power dynamics coming or being activated for you in October. Thus the bed, thus the need for boundaries, thus the need for rest. There is some spiritual lesson and articulations that you are moving through this month as you assimilate learnings and step into a more confident, powerful place, right? That's the flute ultimately that came at the end there. So this is a point of contention. Inner psyche going through great shifts and changes, the push to be individuated and expressed and confident, and having to push up against power dynamics with regards to, and when I say 8th house power dynamics, it has to do with your power, other people's power, but the 8th house is also about things such as, family inheritance or having our needs met through other, right? The 8th house is shared resources, shared money, loans and taxes and the money that's tied that we have with another or with another entity. And indeed, it does have to do with also with, family inheritance. For some of you, there could be that kind of stuff coming up. Remember, there were 6 kind of nodes on that flute, indicating something with family and security and finances. So for some of you, there is something with regards to dependency on another to meet your essential needs. So there might be some challenge coming up that you're navigating in the month of October with that. Now, with all that being said, Gemini, another thing was pretty interesting and activated here, which I would say also for you is a bit intense, which is this. That Sun-Moon conjunct at 5 degrees Libra, again, imbuing the energetics for this month ahead, was quincunx exactly 5 degrees Uranus in your 12th house. So what does that mean? It means that there's a discord, there's dissonance, and there's some challenge. Certainly, whenever we have a quincunx, there's a crisis even that can emerge between the birth of you as a newly individuated self and you birthing as a newly individuated self as you relate to people. There's a bit of crunchiness in regards to unexpected events that might challenge your value, unexpected events that actually are quote unquote fated, because we're talking for you, for the archetype, for the generalized archetype of Gemini, Uranus in your 12th naturally is talking about there will be fated events that will be Uranian in nature that you're going to be going through for the next several years. Okay. Now, with that being said, Uranus exactly quincunxing the new birth of you in that 5th house is a big deal, because you're having to learn to adapt. You're having to learn to deal with things that might erupt out of the blue. And that's part of, let's say, even a training exercise. This is part of just what's happening right now. It is happening in the month of October. That is part of the signature. Okay, so if it does, use all of it as a reflection, and also use it as practice for malleability and for allowance of what is, because the what is has some sort of a function. It's not random. Uranus in your 12th is not bringing forward random events, but they might come out of the blue in your mind, in your perception. It's out of the blue. It's eruptive. It's emergent. In life and living systems, emergence is a part of the narrative. Emergence is a part of the function of nature. But emergence is not random. So it's important that you start to grasp the understanding that things that might be occurring in your life scenario right now, even though they're arising or popping up and you're not expecting them, please understand they're not random. They are serving some function. They're there energetically tied to a reflection mechanism, to your blueprint. So you have to understand what your blueprint is in order to really understand what is, okay? Again, for those interested in the natal analysis, you can see the links below this video, okay? So very important a very big month, I think, for Gemini. That's kind of a big one. Let's see what else I wanted to look at. The other thing that I'll mention is that at the end, as we entered this October cycle, Mars was at the end of Virgo, opposed Neptune. And for you, Mars was in your 4th house. Mars, 4th house, Neptune, 10th house. This is giving you, and it's kind of a continuation of September, Mars in the 4th opposed Neptune in the 10th is interesting, because naturally it's giving you the natural energetic drive and the desire to put your energy into home. Either your home, the physical home, your property, or family, your mother, or the family that you have as an adult. But home, family, and your private life, your private self, and your inner emotional health and well-being. That's another thing here. Especially Mars in Virgo, 4th Gemini for you. This is about putting your energy into your own emotional health and well-being, and the health and well-being of your home and family. Now, that's where the natural drive is for your energy. It's opposed Neptune in the 10th, which is almost like I need to, well, there's a couple things with that. There are a couple things, because for some of you, there's going to be a drive to let your career kind of dissolve, like you don't want to attend to it at all. You don't really want to work. You don't really know what you want to do anyway. You don't really know what direction to go in anyway. Neptune in that 10th can create some confusion. When you're not meditating daily, when you're not in kind of a place of spiritual clarity, there can be a lot of natural confusion with that placement, right? But it also has another function. Neptune in that space is also spiritualizing your career, and it's also spiritualizing your goals for accomplishment that you want to attain in your life. But the point is that in the month of October, that opposition also was squaring Jupiter, okay? And for you, Jupiter is in the 7th house of relationships. So for you, home, career, and relationships is all engaged in this T-square, which could actually create a lot of interesting dynamics when it comes to positive, optimistic action that you take from a rather confident, internalized state of being, and communications with people in general, communications with, and also teaching. So for those of you who are already doing teaching work, Jupiter in that 7th house, as it's squaring that Mars on the 4th, and as it's opposing that Neptune in the 10th, definitely, again, in October, and it's a continuation of September, there's just a deep drive to maybe bring forward your teachings to people, or partake in learning portals, courses and stuff, and receiving information from teachers, right? Especially, again, going back to the artwork with the television and the window on the bed, it's like you're gleaning or taking in a lot of information in the month of October. Again, discernment with regards to how much technology, etc. You want to balance being outside, etc. But you're drinking in a lot of information, I think. And you might be doing it with a boundary or with a border, because you might need energetic protection this month as well. Let's see if there's anything else. The other thing that I'll say is this: that new moon, that sun-moon conjunction in Libra in your 5th house, it was opposed Chiron in the 11th. And Chiron, Aries 11th, brings a bit of insecurity and vulnerability with regards to the topic of belonging. Where do I belong? Where's my tribe? Who do I fit in with, etc.? So indeed, the birth of the new you, that 5-degree self, with regards to how it relates to people, how it harmonizes with people, Libra, that is opposing that Chiron. So what that means is that indeed there is this kind of activation of the internal wound, of feeling a bit vulnerable, having self-doubt about who you are and how you belong into the group. So that's activated, all right? But again, it's a navigation for you to fully embrace all of who you are, love all of who you are, and ultimately access the other side of Chiron, which is the master teacher healer of the group, right? Because that's what's activated for you for the next several years. That's what you're growing, okay? Okay, Gemini, I think I'm going to leave it there. I send you so much love for this month ahead. There'll be much more in November. I will be posting some specials for October. So you want to subscribe to this channel, of course, if you haven't already, but subscribe to my newsletter. You can check the links below. I encourage those of you ready to understand your natal blueprint in depth to order a natal analysis. And if you have any questions, you can be in touch. Much love. Bye-bye.